from evening to possibly deep into the night. And classic example, night. What the policy, for instance, with this is going to do is that at night, you are giving the person the incentive that, look, if you are paying maybe for every kilowatts of power that you buy, maybe you are paying, say, $2 for it. At productivity, by employing a few more hands at night, you will get to pay electricity as an incentive that you will already, but for this policy reason. I think it's also important to make this point forcefully that immediately present to this task, what he did was to reach out to as many people as he can, from the Association of Ghana Industries, experts, CSOs, among other people, captains of industry, to appreciate from their end how this policy is rolled out. And thankfully, this is not going to be one of those policies where a few people will sit in a classroom or at a workshop and say, look, this is what we have for you. Take it or leave it. No. Mr. Gusitando reached out to our people, got their buy-in into the policy, and today the president has launched it. Now, if you watch carefully when the president did the launch, one of the things that he said is that even for transportation, and Mr. Gusitando used a classic example of the Volta Lake, right? We have not put that natural resource to good use. Because if we are able to do that, Alfred, we can have, so for instance, and I'll give you this example, you can bring, because it's exported, accelerated export, when you bring goods from outside to Tema Harbour, because there's a multimodal transport infrastructure, you can pick it on the railway line, straight to Mpakadan. At Mpakadan, you can get those items picked directly to, say, Bupe. They are taken out there straight to Burkina, Mali, and others. So you can have a situation where things begin to flow quickly than it used to be in the past. The Gothisberg economy that we have always complained about is grounded on extraction and exports without more. And so if you look historically, even our railway infrastructure were limited to what is called the triangle, you understand, where the raw materials are produced straight to the port, nothing more, nothing else. That Gothisberg railway infrastructure that we picked is the same as we have today. But the president is saying that no, when we take our cocoa to outside, we only get chocolate from Switzerland and the rest. The value addition is not done by us, but that is really where the money is. That is where the money is. So President Mahama is saying that it is not just a 24-hour economy, but an integration to have a full cycle economy. So that, for instance, the gold produced in Ghana can also be changed into all the valuable items in this republic, job creation. And then you can also have value addition. So tomorrow, when you go to the big shops in Switzerland, in the US of A, among other things, the necklace you say should be a Ghanaian brand produced by young people of this country, by creating jobs also in the country. That is the only way we can grow this economy. That is far distinct, and I say this, from the implementation of, say, 1D, 1F. Alfred, please, in the name of God, you are into research. Can you tell me 1D1F after 8 years, which of the products which is produced out of 1D1F, can you say that within 8 years has generated for this economy, say, $100 million? I just want to have that learning this morning. And so we may talk about what has happened in the past, and in direct response to my senior brother, Zato. Yes, it's true. We've had 1D1F. But you see, the policy silos that we have in the past did not allow us to do full integration. And so you see, when the regime is gone, everything is basically gone as well. I want to address something quickly, Alfred. One NPP MP, I think lawyer Bafo or something, has raised this issue, and I think it's worth considering, that we should put the 24-hour economy into a full legislation. And the whole thing is that once we get Parliament's buy-in, and then there is a legislation backing it, then you can have, like the way you have NPA, an authority. You can equally have an authority headed by, say, maybe a CEO and others, to oversee the implementation of such a laudable project. You do not want it to be like a secretariat in the office of the president. You want a situation where it is elevated to the status of an authority. And once you have an authority and a director general or whatsoever to see the implementation, they can probably also coordinate. What President Mahama is interested in is anything that will create jobs for the millions of our young people on the streets. A person who has finished university should be able to immediately get work. But you see, there are very low-hanging areas that for the 24-hour we can start. For instance, as I speak to you, my good brother, the CEO of DVLA, has started some 24-hour points of service, particularly the one at Adenta Aviation, where you can have all the services performed by DVLA getting on there. As I speak to you, the Director General of Ghana Ports and Harbour, Brigadier General Paul Tani, has started the 24-hour port services. Look, the time lost in keeping our ports closed because it is night, we have gone past that. When you go to MPS, the Meridian Port Service, and the activity they perform there, it is 24 hours. And so there are low-hanging fruits that even without bigger incentives, we can already start with it. And President Mahama is determined. If the ports are going to operate 24 hours, what it means is that you need as many hands as you can. You need security people to help. And I want to come zero into my own place now at the National Petroleum Authority. We have set up a team to advise on this 24-hour economy within the downstream petroleum sector. They have come out with very, very beautiful ideas. Alfred, we are looking at two scenarios, and because we are also looking at the issue of job creation, even if you have self-service point, which runs 24 hours, you need people to man it. We're also looking at a situation where the traditional fuel stations that we have can also work during the night. What is key for them? And when you speak to COMAC and their members, their prior concern is the issue of security. When they are working at night, armed robbers will not come and say, give me your money. No. By so doing, the president is now put in a situation where he needs to recruit more persons to be police officers who create the needed security for our businessmen within the petroleum downstream. And so, Alfred, I can assure everybody that This is not going to be a mirage. The president is determined to leave a legacy, a transformative legacy, particularly when it comes to the issue of job creation. Alfred, I cannot conclude without raising these fundamental issues. Because Prof. Bokin is on the other side, and my own good friend, Dr. Tio Echampon. Look, the first thing President Mahama did, with the appointment of my brother Sami Jemfi at the Gold Board, the Honorable Lato Forsen, Dr. Johnson Isiama, what these three individuals have done together is to ensure that today there's a better management of the Ghana cedi and its relationship with the US dollar. The Gold Board particularly had also helped in stabilizing, because in the past, the economics was that let cocoa board take our cocoa outside and go and syndicate loans into the country. And so this syndicated loan eventually will provide some support for the Ghana cedi. But from 2017, Alfred, to 2024, let me say up to 2023, you would notice that annually, the government of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and Bawumia were annually giving the Ghana cedi $2 billion of Eurobond support. So the cedi was effectively dependent on steroid, which steroid had to do with annually injecting at least $2 billion as a support platform for the cedi. So you notice that from 2017, when we did the Franklin Templeton $2.25 billion,
yes,
the subsequent year we did another $2 billion. Subsequent year, $3 billion, which eventually culminated in the media razzmatazz, with where media people were said were the KK and whatever parts that were successful at Eurobond markets. That is how government in the past supported the Ghana cedi with steroids.
Right.
So the Ghanaian cedi was effectively on performance enhancing drugs. And so if you observe, from April to June to August, the cedi feels a bit strengthened until we'll be waiting for October for the syndicated loan, by which time Ghanaian businessmen will begin to do their import orders. And by so doing, it begins to have ripple effect on the Ghana cedi. We've done that model for 8 solid years. We ended up by relying, when in 2022, we wanted to go to the Eurobond market, and unfortunately, we were downgraded. It moved the Ghana cedi to almost 17 cedis, and inflation at 54%. That model we worked out, and we have seen that it never worked. And so President Mahama with his team, Sami Jemfi, Dr. Siama, Atuforsen, and their technical advisors, what they have done now is the use of the Ghana gold. Effectively, what we are doing, unlike in the past, where you take the dollar out and expect to sell it out and expect to get, this time around, what they are doing is that they are buying the dollar with Ghana cedis. Simple economics, demand and supply. Because you are purchasing it in cedis, you don't need, quote unquote, more cedis, more. In the past, if you are buying in dollars, you need to mobilize more Ghana cedis to do or to change into dollars in order to do the purchases.
Right.
This time around, no. And that is why you see that there is no downward pressure on the Ghana cedi. This model, my prayer, is that we all encourage the persons at the helm of affairs that will continue with this model, so that once we get the dollar, it stays in the Bank of Ghana thing to help even for fuel purchase. And let me link it to what I do. Every month or within the month, The bulk oil distributors go to Bank of Ghana, right, for what they call forex auction. If there's no forex in the system, the pressure will come and the price of fuel will rise up at the pump. But because of this intervention from Gold Board, the finance minister, and the governor of Bank of Ghana, at least the forex side today looks relatively stable. So it is something that is doable. And this is a direct response to my brother, Dr. Zato.
Mm-hmm. I see. Oh, well, thank you. But then again, there was a fundamental. You referenced the gold board and gold reserves. The Bank of Ghana, within the week, put out that gold reserves had hit 32.99 tons as of June. That's fourfold surge.
Do you know that this number in the whole of 2020? Yes. Alfred,
quick one.
Do you know that the whole of 2024 gold purchase, right? Mm-hmm. We have already exceeded that in 6 months. And so this whole gold board structure put out by President Mahama is a game changer. The gold board has come to stay. And you see where President Mahama started the initiative from, by first legislating it, putting it in law. And once it has the force of law, it matters not who you are. You have seen in the news the arrest of Chinese, Indians, and others who have taken over the market. Now you cannot do that. It is a regulated industry. And so I have no doubt at all in my mind that for the next 4 years with President Mahama at the helm of affairs, we are going to ensure further stability of the Ghana city. And once that is done, I am very confident that the translation will be improved living conditions for our people, because now basic household items will be cheaper. And when things are cheaper, you know how much you spend from your disposable income. You can buy more items with the same income. And so that is where President Mahama is driving the economy overall to.
Go to Professor Bobkin on this quickly, because I'll come back to you. There's a bit on the funding, because the breakdown of where the money is coming from and how much this is going to cost is another area of focus that we'll get into. I also want to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Theo Champong. I think the connection is clear and stable now. Dr. Theo Champong, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Alfred. Good morning to our panelists.
Perfect. And I do appreciate your time this morning. Professor Bobkin, I mean, this week, in fact, I was at the launch. After the launch, I was having a conversation with a development economist who has worked with the United Nations for quite a while. He says, even the road to hell is paved with good intentions, because somehow there has to be something beyond just this.
That's a good
to
one.
ensure that this policy is effectively implemented. The specific benchmarks that we're going to have to deal with to ensure that it comes to fruition for the greater good. You saw this document even before Wednesday, and have had time to peruse it as well. What is in there that excites you?
Thank you very much.
What has to also be changed or improved?
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, and then good morning to our cherished viewers. So there's a lot of positives from the document. You recall that one of the things that probably had created a lot of expectation yet to be fulfilled has to do with the 24-hour economic policy and all of that. So finally it's been launched and all of that. So overall, there's a genuine attempt to move this economy forward, just as many other governments in the time past have done. Good intentions, and I see a lot of good intentions in this document, but intentions necessarily are not achievements. You have to be able to have a strategy to translate that into accomplishments. and I have looked at the document, I mean, for some time now, I've looked at it in relation to several other policy documents that we have implemented in the last 25 years or so. That's how come I reference the Ghana Shared Growth and Development Agenda 1, Ghana Shared Growth and Development Agenda 2. I've also looked at the document in relation to Ghana Beyond Aid, right? And then also, again, in terms of the program for, coordinated program for economic and social development running from actually 2017 to 2024, but because of COVID, it was extended to 2025. I've looked at all of that. So if you put all of this together, you can say there is much of a new thing in this policy. Let me put it that way. The diagnosis is not different from what we have read from all the other documents. Essentially, even if we don't want to use the same semantics, we are looking at changing the Georgesburg economy. The economy that is predominantly based on export of primary commodities. And that is where I say that there are good intentions in this. Why? Because the diagnosis is right. We acknowledge that the economy fundamentally has not changed from what we inherited from our colonial ancestors in 1957, where predominantly more than almost 80% of our export earnings are still driven by primary commodities. In fact, when we say we have done well, it's more of the same. So when we say we have done well, it's more of the same because we have only added oil and gas. They are all still on process, and that is how we do it. So you can see the attempt to shift the economy structurally from that deformity, that is actually the word they use in this policy document, to one that is based on value added and all of that. And then again, when you read the document, you see, again, I respect them for the diagnosis they've done way back to the 60s, where the percentage of our manufacturing to GDP has hovered around 11-12%. Okay, which was almost the same rate with respect to Malaysia, Thailand, and others. But in their growth takeoff, they have moved and added more value, and we have stayed almost at the same level and all of that. I also take inspiration from this document that there's an attempt to strengthen the employment response to growth, because we have seen positive growth in the last couple of decades, but largely have been jobless growth. That is what we have celebrated. So I see that over the period, 4-year period or so, they are looking at creating about 1.7 million jobs and all of that. So we'll go into the details. So when you look at all of that, the diagnosis from agriculture, the challenges and all of that, really, it is not new. It is not new. In fact, you can see great, and what I've done is to situate this policy document side by side Ghana Beyond Aid, and to also situate this policy side by side the IMF supported program and all of that, and then see the synergies and all of that. In fact, in terms of conceptualization, there's really not much difference between this and Ghana Beyond Aid in terms of the focus, the direction. The only thing is that they christened the Ghana Beyond Aid, essentially in terms of domesticating the financing rather than depending on foreign aid and all of that. So from that broader framework, you see that. Then again, if you look at the economic development instruments, there's a difference between the policy framework in terms of the overall and the strategy to translate that into actual. Let's say the channel you want to use, call that one the economic development instrument. Under the Ghana Beyond Aid, you see the economic development instrument straddles across fiscal, monetary, fiscal incentives, We've spoken about incentives, monetary, then again, specific economic development instrument like one district, one factory, planting for food and jobs, and then even there's also planting for exports and development, and a whole lot of them, and all of that. In fact, beyond this economic development instrument, there are cross-cutting interventions, business support, digitization, because digitization is a cross-cutting intervention rather than a standalone intervention. You see all of that. The reason I'm saying this is this. We should be looking at positioning our policy interventions to ensure policy continuity. We need to do that. You know why we need to do that? Because under the Ghana Beyond Aid 1D, 1F, and the rest of them, monies have been spent.
Indeed.
Businesses have benefited. We can't look. I have done a review of these economic development instruments in terms of their impact, tracing it until COVID came and then after COVID and all that we have spent. So we've made some progress. My conclusion was that we could have done better, but the risk of not ensuring policy continuity. And when I read this, I want to see how this builds on all the successive things. It's good because it assures stakeholders and investors, because to the extent that it is not the government that is going to implement this program in terms of the financing, and I'll come to the financing and why I have reservations. So that's how we need to look at it. The other bit also is that
in fact, we started the entire conversation with the continuity bit because it's key.
It's very key. So,
just PFD alone, almost $1 billion. We have to find a way of.
Let's call it another name. Grow 24. I can link it to planting for food and jobs. I can link it there. It's just that we don't want to, maybe sometimes because of how to share the credit, and we don't have a formula for sharing credit.
No. Politicians are not good at sharing credit. They are like kids when it comes to that.
I have mapped them this to this. I've done all of that. So Grow 24, you can link it to that. In fact, actually make 24. Okay, 1D, 1F, and all of that. Of course, I see Grow 24 in terms of a certain paradigm shift. Also using the voter lake and all of that, and exploring the potential, the economic potential of that. And I'm happy Dr. T.A. Champon is here because he has also looked at the economic potential of the voter and all of that. And that tells you again the vision of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and all of that. We've abandoned all that, and that is why policy continuity is very important and all of that. So I've seen how also this also seeks to also add, I would say add, okay, to what we have seen in the time past and all of that. But there are other things that I think the government should take another look at. When I situate this policy, call it a program, side by side that of the IMF program, I see why the IMF program had a future and this may not. Why? I'm using the word may not. Okay? May not because, and my own suggestion to the government so that we in there and all of that, if we be able to implement them and all of that, it will be very great. One, we have implemented several IMF-supported programs in this country. In fact, actually, this is the 17th. Even though under the IMF, on the IMF website, they are indicating that we have been there 18 times.
And I support that.
Yes.
COVID, what we got is a program.
And then we are counting 17. But, Alfred, in all of this, we have not, as a country, created a secretariat for IMF-supported program. We haven't created an authority to implement IMF-supported program. We haven't. I will tell you why. So you see that, and over the years, anytime government comes out with flagship program, then we want to be able to take it away from the existing structures that we use to implement our development agenda.
Yeah.
That is the way you kill it very fast. And I'll tell you why. And it's also the reason why you find that IMF programs cut across regimes. This current program was started by the previous administration. The current government came. They are continuing with it. I'll tell you a few reasons in terms of the analysis I've done. We don't have a secretariat for IMF sitting anywhere in our ministries. But the program is running. because it's about using the structures, the system, to implement the intervention you want to do. And that would actually represent a low-cost approach to implementing. That is something that we also haven't done well as a country. You see the previous admin we were talking about, we created Southern Development Days, days that budgetary allocation. What is the value? Couldn't we have implemented a lot of almost all those things using the existing channels? We have the local government, we have a decentralized government system and all of that. Budgetary allocations, there are civil servants who are recruited, professionals trained and all of that. They implement all of this. Why do we want to create an authority?
So there was a Northern Development Authority,
yes,
Coastal Development Authority and so on. Yeah,
so since 1992, if you check the cost drive, you realize that the administrative cost of implementing policies and all have expanded hugely. But what is the cost? What is the value from all of that? How do we implement this with a low-cost approach and all of that? And that's what I'm saying, that if you create an authority,
True.
you create a secretariat and all of that, in fact, what it means is that this is going to be like a standalone. We are not infusing it within the system and build ownership. There are three framework or building blocks for assessing the feasibility, implementability of a program. Is it acceptable? Is it feasible? Suitable? And all of that. To do all of this and check all of that is about how you want to use the system, how the various structures would accept that, work with that and all of that. And I'll give you a couple of examples. If you look at, so you just look at the cost builder, administrative cost builder, that the previous administration used in implementing some of these programs. Huge. Huge. At the end of the day, the recruitment will be party lines and all of that. We don't need to create it. For instance, if Ghana Police Service, with all due respect, tells me that they are now creating a unit for 24-hour economy, I'm asking myself, it should be a mindset.
which they have actually.
Okay, it should be a mindset. I don't know what the strategy they want to implement. In fact, even those who do the first shift and will go and sleep need protection as much as those who go for the third shift. It's a mindset. We have to revolutionize our mindset, and that is why you see that the Ghana Beyond Aid, apart from the hardcore issues and the rest of them, there is the issue about the mindset, the soft skills. I see that also in this program when they talk about is it Make 24, Grow 24, Show 24, Grow 24, and all of that. There's the mobilization, mindset shift, and all of that. So I may work for the first shift, but I should work with that mindset. I should work with that same drive and all of that. Look, you check Ghana, the National Health Insurance Authority, right? From the time it was set up to implement this, to date, almost 44% of the total allocation to them now goes to administrative. How do you pay claims promptly? Check Cocoa Board and the rest, and check other countries like Cote d'Ivoire and the rest of them. It is possible that now Cocoa Board may have more V8 than cocoa beans. Okay, and all of that. So we should be looking at the cost of implementing our development policies and the rest of them, so that we don't burden the taxpayer on us and the rest of them. Then again, the other bit is the all of this is not just to run down the program, but I believe that I've told you how I respect this program and the rest of it, but we can make it work. We can make it work. When I look at the, and I've again looked at the policy in relation to the NDC's manifesto.
Right.
And here I want to say this. From the NDC's manifesto, the 24-hour economy is the overall framework.
Essentially, yes.
From which fiscal policy, monetary policy are anchored and all of that. I don't see that in the program eventually as it has been developed. It looks to me at some point that is subordinate to a certain framework from fiscal and monetary that will be developed and all of that. And that is why I'm saying that if you look at it from that perspective, you understand why the costing of the program really
is the 4 billion.
Is the 4 billion. But actually, you need more than 4 billion if you are looking at this 24-hour economy from that conceptualization and everything. And that is where you see a big difference between this and then the IMF supported program. Because if you see how the IMF supported program was developed and the phasing and the reporting and all the data reporting weekly, monthly, quarterly from Ministry of Finance, from Bank of Ghana and the rest of them and all of that builds ownership, binds us, okay, and all of that. We don't have that in here. Of course, I've seen some period, 2026, 2028, 2025, and the rest of them. It's very difficult tracking from that. We need to have those KPIs, link that to the critical success factors within this program policy, because it's not just a policy, it's a program, it's a development, the economic development instrument, all captured in this and all of this. So that is what I think we should be able to do. This is how I see this policy. I see that they can add to this policy, to this document, they can, so that given that the government does not intend to go for another program from 2026, I think we should be looking at how we can flesh in this as a successor to that. That binds us with reporting lines, review timelines, okay, that allows us to track the data. And we may not need to create a secretariat necessary for this, because when it comes to the data tracking and the rest of them, we have Ghana Statistical Service. When it comes to the fiscal side and the rest of it, we have Ministry of Finance. And that is why you see IMF review every 6 months, and yet there's no secretariat here. And in fact, even though IMF has an office here, it's not an implementing agency or something, because the Ministry of Finance reports submit the data, Bank of Ghana reports submit the data, Ministry of Finance, there are institutions under Ministry of Finance that also supply data to Ministry of Finance institutions, that also supply data to Bank of Ghana, and all of this is done. That way, it makes it, it will bind us. So for instance, 6 months from now, what are the targets under the program? How is this linked to overall economic growth, human development, and all of that? So we have the economic development instrument. We are situating them within the 3 sectorial disaggregations, agri, industry, service. What is the projected growth under this 24-hour economy? 6 months, 1 year, 1.5 years, 2 years, and all of that. So that if we are not on track, we're able to analyze the variance. To do that, what are the reforms that we need to do? Governance, market reforms, product reforms, and all of that. I think those are the things we can learn substantially from that. And again, I will say that let's read the IMF supported program. Let's look at how it was designed. Let's look at the monitoring mechanisms in place, the target, the KPIs, the reforms, and all of that. Who is doing what? Who is doing that? The reporting timeline by which, this way, it then compels us to go beyond just putting the document together, because it's easier to reference, read from here, and all of that. Then we can also look at the costing effectively. So you see the IMF program in terms of the fiscal and the rest of them, there's the program financing gap that was initially estimated to be around $15 billion in balance of payment support, right? Then the next important question was, how do you finance this? The IMF said they will give $3 billion. The World Bank says they will give 1.5 or 1.6 billion. Then substantially we estimated that there will be a gap of almost $11 billion. Where would that come from? So no, it has to come from debt restructuring. Yeah. Okay, so they have to come on board. And so when you do all of this, by the time you go through all of this, it then draws all the other institutions, and then you build ownership. So even if you don't create a secretariat, the Ministry of Finance is running with it. Ghana Statistical Service know what they have to do. A Bank of Ghana knows what they have to do from all of that. So I think that is how I see it. And I want to commend government, because you see, coming out with something like this, even within this short time, it's been a lot of work. I've seen the consultations, submissions from CSOs, and my very good friend Bryce Simmons also made a submission, and all of that. Very good. I would say that it's an added advantage. If you read the Ghana Beyond Aid, there were similar submissions, even from Department of Economics, colleges, KNUST, the rest of them. Again, if you look at Ghana Beyond Aid, there was an attempt, let me say this, there was an attempt to take policies out of it, but it actually didn't work.
Why did it not work if there was an attempt?
Because we see these things as isolated, rather than using the structures and building the ownership. They talked about how to implement it. A council to be chaired by the president. Is that okay? Or in his absence, the vice. And then they talked about an opposition member being this and all of that. There was an attempt within the Ghana Beyond Aid to try and make it national and all of that. So that's why I'm saying that having gone through all of this, if you look at Ghana Shared Growth and Development Agenda 1, Ghana Shared Growth and Development, and all of this, and there's always an attempt to make it look national. And yet, we have failed as much as we conceptualize it. The question is, going forward, how do we do it? And that's what I'm saying, that how have other programs that we have implemented, I hope you understand that, even started by a different regime, and yet the other one, of course, somebody will say, well, if you go against the IMF, there are penalties. Why can't we impose similar penalties on ourselves?
So that if a government fails to continue projects that are analyzed to be beyond that, well thought through and good,
even beyond that,
punished for that.
Yes, Alfred, beyond that, 6 months from now, if this program had KPIs with timelines, and we are saying that 6 months' time, there's going to be a public review, a cabinet review of this. It will be shown on TV. I hope you understand that. And all of that. Everybody will be working towards it. Because if the sector minister knows that in 6 months my performance is going to be reviewed, the result of that is going to be made public. People respond to incentives. It's not just incentives in this document that businesses to respond to. As a worker, I respond to incentives. As a sector minister, people respond to incentives. The incentive mechanism we put in here, it may be a reward, it may be a chastisement, it may be a discipline or whatever. We need to have all of that. Otherwise, you see, we can discuss this, and Ghana, we are used to that. In the next 6 months, after that, I hope you understand that, it just dies down. Because after that, there's no 6-month review. There's no 8-month review where we'll come back to this. But I can tell you, investors, stakeholders, everybody reads the IMF supported program. True. Because, in fact, the board is going to meet, is it July 7th or so? The report of the board will be made what? Public. In fact, you know the reason why some of us and CSOs are more happy when Ghana is under IMF program? Because there's more data. When they do the review, the outcome is published. So if the government is not doing well, they will know. There's no politics about debt numbers. There's no politics about this. Of course, I see now that we are going to create the fiscal council. My good friend is here, Dr. Chio Champon. That's his free elective, right? And all of that. So the idea is that the fiscal council will be some kind of an internal institutional restraint agent similar to the IMF. No, we are not accountable to ourselves. That's the issue. When we are under IMF program, we are accountable because we know that there are these things. And that is why when the government said that they will not go for another program, but they will rather go for policy support instrument, we said, that there's risk there because policy support instrument overall is advisory. It's not binding. And all of, how do we make this program get input? We can refine it. I mean, that's how I see it. And all of that. We can refine it and make it binding, where maybe every 6 months there are key performance indicators. And then we look at the data reporting and the rest of them. Look, there's one thing that I'm also not happy. And I need to say it here. Almost all our national development policy assessment and everything, we hardly reference our own data generation. We will reference World Bank survey. They have come to do for us. We will reference this, we will reference all of that. In fact, this should help us internalize data generation and make the development people-centered, Ghana-centered, so that going for the IMF will reference the report data. I hope you understand that. World Bank will reference investors, stakeholders. That is how every country that has developed has designed its own national framework of data generation, align it to what they want, and the rest of them. It's not everything the West, the powers that be want, that we actually want for ourselves, and the rest of them. So that is the kind of ownership we need to build. I salute government. It's a lot of work that they have done and all of that. But what I'm saying is that we can refine it going forward. And I'm expecting, probably maybe there's already a process in place to develop the next 3-year coordinated economic and social and whatever that is drawn from the constitution. I am told, I'm not aware.
That's right.
When I came to Legon, I wanted to do law, and it was our time they said law was no longer available. So some way, somehow,
don't let them know that we are too young. You know, don't let them know we are too young.
Even if you don't acknowledge it, you are young. Okay, so that is how I see it. So I commend them. I think that this gives hope. It's an important first step. And I believe that because at some point it is seen or projected as as subordinate to something monetary framework that will be developed. No, it should be the overriding this thing. We should get the Ministry of Finance, Bank of Ghana, and all of that. Let's fleshing this up. Of course, they will say they have. We don't need to create an authority. We don't need to create a separate secretariat. Let's use the channels that we have. We have a decentralized local government system. We have Ministry of Finance. We have development, implementing agency, and the rest of them. Let's minimize the cost of implementing this. Let's build the ownership. In fact, that is the only way you insulate some of these institutions from the politics and regime change. Because we see a time, of course, I know what government is going to face. There might be sabotage and all that. So sometimes they want to take this out of the traditional system and own it and implement because there might be sabotage. But we need to orient people. You are not doing the job, you should be fired. Okay? Indeed. There are targets, there are KPIs, there are this and all of that linked to critical success factors. And all. If you are not doing it, you should exit. And all of that. That's how we need to see it. So that we don't create units. And all of that is another way of politicizing some of these things, so that if there's a regime change, then all those units, what happens? And the people who are employed, look, now we are changing CEOs. In fact, we are even changing deputy CEOs. A time will come when there's a regime change, we'll change cleaners. I hope you understand that. The institutional memory and all of that. And that is why you see within the civil servants, civil service, public service space, people are trying to align politically or so, because to get to a certain top level, it's like your political, we need to move away from that. Okay. Thank you. This will be my preliminary. These are just preliminary. These are just preliminary.
It is detailed.
It's like we've been sitting in an economic class.
I've done a review. I've compared this to several of them and all of that. But I've also seen my bosses here, so I need to.
That's why because of the review and analysis you've done with other development policies that we have seen in the past, I had you go into that detail. I know you're putting together a paper with this comparative analysis you have done. We have the privilege of being the first to see the details as you have put out there. But Dr. Tejampo, this is why I bring you in, the specific detail about the consistent review, at least to ensure some level of accountability, so that Professor Bopkin talked about every 6 months at least, we should have some sort of a cabinet review for us all to see, public, telecast on live television. So there's some sense of ownership of this policy in order to carry all of us along every step of the way. What's your take on that?
Yes, sir. Good morning to Prof and everyone in there. And I think it's made my job quite easier in relation to this. So I've also had the privilege of actually digesting and looking at this document way before it came out or was launched on the 3 days ago. Like Prof said, my reflections on the document is that it clearly shows that a lot of work and thinking has gone into it, and it clearly also attempts to articulate a number of the structural challenges that has faced the Ghanaian economy way back from the Kwame Nkrumah days till now. And also an attempt not only to grow the economy per se, but importantly, there are 3 other dimensions that is reflected in this document. The first one is the attempt at diversification. And Prof talks a lot about it, so I won't belabor the point. The second one is also about jobs, and the fact that a lot of our youth, many of us know, are struggling. People don't have jobs to do, and we have a few low-hanging fruits that could allow us, both on the agri-sector side, but also within the services side, to create a bit more jobs. And this is where, in the document, they talk about the 5 strategic manufacturing value chains under the Make 24 sub-component of the program. So, for example, they talk about agro-processing, they talk about textiles and garments, they talk about pharmaceuticals, they talk about machinery and technology, and they talk about... So these are areas that Ghana already within the West African sub-region and even the African region has some comparative advantage within, and we already have some investment and interventions within that space, some of which stretches back earlier programs, including, for example, under the 1D1F, and then other interventions. You could even go all the way back to the President Kufuor's PSI, and then further to the Rawlings administration. So there are clear areas that we historically have done well and have some comparative advantage within. So in that sense, some of the areas that are proposed in the program, again, like Prof said, is not necessarily new. I think the third dimension, and this is where maybe there's a bit of an emphasis of, I think, kind of newness in it, is really the emphasis on productivity, right? So diversification, jobs, but importantly, we need to increase productivity in this country. And that is the bit that I see there's quite a bit of a push and a bit of an emphasis in this document that you don't have with others. The second thing that I have seen, which is also quite important, that is here that I think you don't see in others, is that it is actually moved from a policy to actually becoming a program. And this is a very important distinction. So in the past, what we've had is you have policy documents. Sometimes even governments announce policies, and the underpinning document to really understand the rationale, the logic is actually not there, right? But this particular piece of 300-page or almost 300-page document takes what you call a programmatic approach, which is typically, for those of us within the development space, maybe a bit more aware, but you take the policy and translate it into a program. And within the program, you have what you may call clusters or work streams or sub-programs. And then within that, you also have an overall what you call theory of change. The theory of change basically is, how do we envision the outcome to be? And then how do we envision overall what the impact is going to be? And then within that, you come further down to look at the inputs that you're making, the outputs that you're making, the outcomes, and then the impact. And this is then ties into the specific point or question that you asked me in terms of the indicators, right? And how we measure that point. So if you look at page 226 onwards of this policy, of this program, not a policy, this is in the appendix. They actually mention what they call national outcome indicators for the 24-hour program. So for example, on economic growth and self-sufficiency, they do mention, for example, bringing down inflation, GDP growth, the usual suspects, right? Unemployment and all of that. But it is not detailed enough. And this is where I agree with Prof in terms of what should happen next. So now the program has been launched. Now you need to operationalize it. So we've got to actually take those indicators that are in there and the program areas and then translate it into a livable document. So basically what you're going to be doing between now and the end of the year, what you're going to do next year, or what you're going to do the year right thereafter. And within that, you have specific indicators. So for example, the bit about real GDP growth, which is the first indicator that we've got in this document, right? What do we mean by that? So by what growth rate are we expecting this program would add onto the baseline scenario if we did not do anything at all, the business as usual scenario? By what rate are we expecting inflation to fall if the outcome in this document says you want economic growth and you want self-sufficiency, and the indicator or sub-indicator there is on bringing down overall inflation? Again, what is the specific data point, right, around that? So I think in the document, it's a useful first start, but clearly a lot more would have to be done to sort of anchor it in a real sense of a programmatic approach where the KPIs and the indicators can clearly be benchmarked and measured, and then we can also see how we are making progress. Because what we don't want, or probably I don't want to happen, is we end up spending a lot of money, putting a lot of money into this, whether it's public or whether it is private, but there's no clear sense of what this did for the transformational agenda of the country. And it is very, very important that those minute details are ironed out, going forward. So I think probably, yes, early days yet, but there's quite a bit more to be done by the government in terms of some of the specifics, and then translating the overall program into the underlying theory of change, and so we can actually measure and see where progress lies.
As you indicated, early days yet, and then again, because of this period where the program was launched, we had to also get into a bit more detail on the specific areas, and then also how the rollout will be going forward. A number of your messages have come through, and I thank you very much. This one here says, farming can really be done in 24 hours. If I am a cassava farmer who fries gari, I can harvest, peel the cassava, grind my cassava dough, and you go ahead and indicate why you think this can be done within this period. This is a 24-hour economy policy falls under supply side economic theory that is supply driven against aggregate demand. Thank you very much. This is coming from the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA. This is the Charles Kusi Apiakubi, Head of Business and Economic Bureau at GUTA. Thank you for your message this morning. This one also here from Musa Abatua. It says, good morning, Alfred. Lawyer Martin Pebu is right. The 24-hour economy policy is a bold and transformative initiative that promises to drive national development by generating jobs and increasing income for ordinary Ghanaians. It clearly reflects President Mohammed's forward-thinking leadership. It is therefore ironic and unfortunate that those who supported this scandal-ridden cathedral project, who turned into a conduit for misappropriating public funds, are now opposing this progressive policy. Thank you very much. This one here also says that, I wonder why Professor Godfrey Bobkin, it says, okay, you go on and indicate why the continuous use of if it is implemented. Is there any doubt that if it cannot be effectively implemented? Well, that's the question to you, Professor Godfrey Bobkin. This one here also says, good morning. I think the insightful analysis by Professor Godfrey Bobkin and Theo Champon this morning gives a clear perspective of how the forward-looking approach should be in discussing this conversation this morning. I just hope that those who are also been appointed to review this policy and inculcate such forward-looking suggestions by your guests this morning will be doing the watching and listening on your program. In fact, they are doing so, and Lawyer Digita Maklo is here, and that's why he's also just indicated that all of these suggestions by Professor Bobkin and Dr. Theo Champon are also going to be taken on board. This one here from Papa Bishu says, listening, good morning. Seriously speaking, I'm happy we have a good listener and a doer in the person of Gusitano leading the charge in the 24-hour economy. The young ones may not know him too well, but the older folks, especially him, he says, Papa Bishu seriously believe in him. A good thinker and a master planner, hence very happy that he's leading the charge. Thank you very much. This one here from Dr. Kwame Asante says that I am happy that Edujita Maklo references the specific areas and other sectors of the economy that this 24-hour economy policy will touch. There is some clarity to how these other areas will feed into the policy. Thank you very much for the detail this morning. Thank you very much for your messages as well. A number of you sending us the messages, and I do acknowledge them as we go on. And Dr. Tue Champong, thank you for your thoughts on this. And this is just, as you indicated, the initial phase of a conversation we're going to be having much more consistently because of the proposal that there has to be continuous review of this policy, which you agree, so that at least every 6 months we hear, or even before the 6 months, I think on a monthly, for us as media, we would have to continue having the conversation. If government decides that every 6 months they will do a cabinet review, that will be publicized, and for us all to know what the review details are, what has been achieved, and what is going to be achieved in the next 6 months is good, essentially. But there was a question about why you think, you keep saying if it is implemented effectively, why the doubts that it will not be done effectively? That was a question from one of our viewers. Very quick one, and then you make your last point. I'd like to go into the next issue.
Maybe I can just ask that they should forgive me. It's not like I'm pessimistic about it and all of that.
Certainly not.
But certainly, we often say that whether we like it or not, we are victims and prisoners of our own time and past. And we tend to judge the new and the strange in terms of our old and familiar. Our marking scheme tends to be what has happened and all of that. But as I said, I'm very happy with the document, the bold attempt, the conceptualization, the diagnosis, the pathways, and even how they have made it more user-friendly, Grow 24 days and all of that. Yes, beyond that, there is a lot of work, and I agree also with Dr. Tue Champong, in translating this into actual. This is where, as a country, we haven't done well. And probably if I use if, it may be coming more from that. But if also gives us hope that we can do it, and then we change the narrative and all of that. And I know that the president wants to leave a legacy. I know that the government is even the way they've started, and the substantial expenditure cut in 2025 and all of that is biting on government itself, ministers and the rest of them. Okay, I mean it's not easy on them. So I would say that government itself is leading by example in terms of the sacrifice and all of, and that is why I supported the one Ghana levy on the fuel and all of that, and I still stand by that. That if you have a good CEO with good intentions, okay, it's not just enough, but you also want to back them with the necessary resources. And that's it. The only side that I'm not too happy so far is how the government is fighting irresponsible mining.
Thank you.
The president must succeed in that area also. Quickly, in the next 6 months, Alfred, in the next 6 months, we should be able to go to our rivers and be able to drink from the same rivers that once gave us life. We want to follow the president. Let's go. That is how we can track progress. I'm not a scientist. I don't know how mercury looks like and all of that. But when the water is clean and I can see fish swimming in it and all of that, I see that Ghana now is back. I want to see that in 6 months. I want to see that 1 year from now.
Me too.
That's what I want to see. And I think Dr. Tue Champong agrees with me.
Yeah, we all agree.
In fact, we earlier made that comment.
Let me add this statement. About a week ago, those of us who reported Chairman Woodman Akunta Mani to the CID, we sent a reminder to CID boss,
Donko.
Yeah, Donko. So CID boss, lawyer, yeah, Donko. She's also, is it COP?
Yes.
Madam, reminder on the Akunta mining and Chairman Woodman case. Yes, it's been about a week. Just as we're on for Sina and Kofi. This one will give some time. When we don't find any traction, it's the same way we'll start pounding here that we want results.
Yes, I think there was an update. There was an update, if you recall. They addressed the press sometime
in this week.
That that was last week. That was last week on the Akunta mining.
Okay, maybe I lost.
Yes,
that.
they said it's actually an active. Well, it was this week, but it was an active investigation that they are on.
Oh, okay.
And so
I didn't get it.
Yeah, they addressed the press.
Okay.
You didn't watch it.
Then I would follow up.
Okay. So that was when they gave an update on the Maxwell Kofi Juma and all of that came with it. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I need to move on to the next issue quickly. Gentlemen, Dr. Tue Champong, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you. Now, you're so live here on KeyPoint on TV3. We're live on 3FM 92.7. Also, the Voice of London Radio in the House of the City of London. And this week, the Ghana Bar Association renewed the call for a review of the decision to suspend the Chief Justice Gertrude Isaba Araba Tokono. The appeal was made during the 43rd Martyrs' Day commemoration, an event held in. But there's been some fundamental questions raised about that call that the Ghana Bar Association has consistently made, and they seem not to change their position on this matter, even though it has evolved from the first time they made that comment during that bar conference earlier in the year. This is the president of the Ghana Bar Association, Ifwa Gate, earlier in the week. Take a look.
Credibility and transparency. The Ghana Bar Association, as well as other legal associations, both local and international, such as the Commonwealth Lawyers Association, Commonwealth Magistrates and Judges Association, and Commonwealth Legal Education Association, as a matter of principle, have made their voices heard on the ongoing process for the removal of the Chief Justice of Ghana, Her Ladyship Justice Gertrude A.S. Tokono. Hoped that any Superior Court judge will be well apprised of the entire process before ever being subjected to same in the spirit of fairness. Rising to the defense of the judiciary's independence is the mandate of the Ghana Bar Association, and this is not personality driven. On this day that we meet to honor the memory of the martyrs of the rule of law, let us resolve as a nation to do ourselves proud and humbly walk away from settling scores endlessly, as we are one nation with one destiny. The Ghana Bar Association reiterates its call to insulate the judiciary from any interference whatsoever. They stand for justice, and they should administer justice to all persons, including themselves. We are confident that in the spirit of reconciliation, all the various calls made for a reconsideration of the suspension of the Chief Justice in the circumstances, as it sets a poor precedent will not. Micah chapter 6 verse 8. We were given an indication what ultimately pleases the Lord in the following words. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. I repeat, to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. May the rule of law reign supreme in our land. May God bless the administration of justice in our country. May God bless the judiciary. May God bless the Ghana Bar Association. And may God bless our homeland Ghana and make it great and strong, bold to defend forever the cause of freedom and of right. May God also bless us to resist oppressors' rule with all our will.
Well, that's the national president of the Ghana Bar Association, of which Lawyer Martin Pebo and Lawyer Digita Maklo are members. You are members in good standing, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Okay, but that's your president that says this suspension of the Chief Justice sets Lawyer Digita Maklo, what are you saying? Sorry.
I was saying that the last time I checked, I'm a member in good standing.
I had to be sure.
Have you paid your dues?
I had to be sure.
Yes.
Has he paid his dues?
Yes, that's why.
But that's the position of
I paid my dues. You know, if you don't pay your dues, you won't get your license for the year.
I see. But this position espoused by the president during the Martyrs' Day memorial service has been the consistent position of the association which you are a member of. Is it one that you agree with, essentially, that this time around they say this suspension has set a poor precedence for the judicial architecture of this country? That's the verdict of the Ghana Bar Association. Lawyer to Chichamaklo.
Okay, so first of all, I need to say that I disagree forcefully with my association president. But you see, the Ghana Bar Association, if you look at its intervention historically, maybe it takes a lukewarm attitude when it's within certain regime, and certainly finds its, possible voice in certain other regime. And I'll start with this. If you recall, under President Wallace, we had a justice of the Supreme Court called Abba. Now, what happened was that the Ghana Bar Association had very strong views of Justice Abba. And in order to trigger the provisions of Article 146, which requires that the removal of justices of the Superior Court should be on grounds of stated misbehavior, on grounds of infirmity, unable to perform their function, among others, the Ghana Bar Association decided to use the instrument of a writ action. Now, when the matter came up for hearing, and it was actually adjudicated, incidentally, His Lordship Justice Kwega, His Lordship Justice Ajabin and Co. Had this to say, and let me go back and read. Let me even go back and read quite the reasoning of the Supreme Court when the Ghana Bar Association decided to use an unconstitutional means to get a Supreme Court judge removed. And I don't know how President Mrs. Sefua Gate would describe that, whether a bad precedent or not. Now, when the issue came up, the Supreme Court, speaking through His Lordship, Justice Ejabin, had this to say. Can I read it?
Yes. Yes, you can.
That's the Ghana Bar Association versus Attorney General and another, 1995-1996, One Ghana Law Report at page 598, quote, "It is clear from the above that under our Constitution 1992, a Chief Justice or a Justice of the Superior Court or Chair of the Regional Tribunal can only be removed from the office by the President acting on the recommendation of the committee appointed by the President or the Chief Justice, as the case may be, to inquire into a petition sent to the President alleging some misbehavior or incompetence against the one concerned." It proceeds. "It is important to note that Article 1468 of the Constitution 1992 provides that the proceedings of the committee appointed to deal with such petition shall be held in camera. It is mandatory. Said that proceedings held in camera, not in public or open court, as unfortunately being done in this case. So you know what the Ghana Bar Association did? Instead of triggering Article 146, they rather issued a writ to achieve the same aim. Do you get it?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason for this important provision is obvious. It's to preserve, protect, safeguard the authority, dignity, and independence of the judiciary. It will be a sad day for this country if the court were to grant the request of the Plaintiff Association and start removing our judges in open court, contrary to the provisions made in the Constitution for that purpose. It is in the light of these observations that I consider this action of the Plaintiff Association, I mean the GBA, who should be expected to know better. Listen carefully.
Mm-hmm.
That an association, the creme de la creme Lawyers Association should know better. Most unfortunate, as is likely to undermine the judiciary in particular and the rule of law in general. The reason why I decided to go back to 1994 is to underscore what the judiciary, okay, the Ghana Bar Association and its intervention over the period has been. I am not surprised at all. Look, when President Mahama decided to appoint 2 justices of the Supreme Court, His Lordship Justice Puaman and Justice Yao Apao, again, the Ghana Bar Association took President Mahama to court. The association was almost quiet until the later end of President Akufo-Addo when they started speaking. Why so? With respect, what is it relative to these impeachment proceedings against a leadership, the Chief Justice? That is untoward. That is a bad precedent. That has not been put out. Has any provision of the 1992 Constitution been undermined? No. I am looking forward. And look, thankfully, my good brother, the Supreme Court, even in this matter, has had the opportunity to intervene, either by describing an act unconstitutional or not, either to injunct a process or not. The Supreme Court has effectively agreed. Now, how come that an association of lawyers, with respect, appears to take a view? And when you say a bad precedent, I've been struggling, okay? I've been struggling to understand what exactly is it that is bad. Because first of all, I am not the maker of the 1992 Constitution. I do not think the president of the Ghana Bar Association, President Mrs. Efuagate, is one of the framers of the Constitution. I do not know. But in the wisdom of the framers of the 1992 Constitution, they actually saw into time that there will be a day that a Chief Justice may be alleged to have misconducted herself and which will require a hearing. Are we, for any reason, saying that those provisions in the Constitution are bad? Is that the suggestion? Because if those provisions are in the Constitution and are being used, where is the bad precedent? With respect, once again, President Efuagate appreciate greatly that the position of the justices of the Superior Court and their removal processes by way of security of tenure applies with all necessary modifications to independent constitutional bodies. So when President Mahama, having received a petition from Richard Nyama, Frank Anodompre, led by way of counsel, Mr. Samson Ladi Ayenedi, for the removal of Mrs. Vivian Lamptey, Loretta Lamptey, the Shrad Board, an appointee of the NDC, was it a bad precedent? Because it's the same Article 146 that was used. And I remember when President Mahama received the petition, right, from Richard Nyama, what President Mahama did was to give it to her ladyship Georgina Wood, the then Chief Justice, to make the prima facie determination. After she made the prima facie determination, her ladyship Georgina Wood then set up the Eniebua Committee. It was my Lord Justice Eniebua, Justice Anthony Brennan, and her ladyship Mariama Owusu, to make an inquiry into the specific allegations against Loretta Vivian Lamptey. Eventually, the committee recommended her removal. Prior to the removal, in a release by the then Chief of Staff, Prosper Barney, in 2015, President Mahama suspended Loretta Lamptey. Suspended her. How different is that from what has happened today, 10 years after? Was it a bad precedent? As recent as I think 10 years ago, we saw President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo apply the same provisions of Article 146 in the removal of Madame or Mrs. Charlotte Osei, in the removal of Mrs. Amankwa and the late Amadou Sule. Was it a bad precedent? I mean, where from this sudden claim that a full compliance with a constitutional provision constitutes a bad precedent? When President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo removed the head of an independent constitutional body like the Electoral Commission, the bar never issued a statement. Please, unless of course the bar intervened and I'm not aware. If you know, please give me the benefit of knowing how the bar intervened when Madame Charlotte Osei was removed. I want to know. In fact, I recall vividly, and I'll say this. After the removal, Mr. Kweku Baku, the respected journalist in this country, went to the Supreme Court to say that the removal of Charlotte Osei on mere grounds of procurement breaches without no further evidence, either she has stolen public funds or not, the Supreme Court refused to entertain that process. In fact, the lawyer for Kweku Baku was my senior, Samson Ladi Ayenede. The Supreme Court resisted a writ action to challenge the removal of Madame Charlotte Osei. Was it a bad precedent? You see, the accounts have a saying. Yes, so way of one side. So way of one side. No, I share one side. You know of war. You know of war.
That's
the monkey.
Monkey. It's a monkey. Exactly. But that call, this call for the reconsideration of the suspension, if you listen to your president, your bar president, says that in the spirit of reconciliation, they're hoping, and he says we, essentially representing the position that you, the members of the Bar Association, have taken, that the various calls for the reconsideration of the Chief Justice suspension will not be ignored, especially given the poor precedents that is set.
You see, when President Mahama...
That's what he said.
No, when President Mahama suspended Loretta Lamte, he gave a policy reason. And in fact, it was at the invitation of the petitioner. You know what they claim was? That as the head of SRAJ, the reason for the petition was or had to do with payments and others, because she was supposed to go to a Melchort's residence, she didn't, she was in a hotel, all kinds of things. And they said, look, if she stood there, listen carefully, the possibility of evidence suppression, among other things, would be profound. Huge possibility. So President Mahama suspended Loretta Lamte. Was it a bad precedent? But you see, let me tell you something today. In the removal process of a leadership, get to talk on. Do you know that judicial service staffs are testifying before the proceedings?
Judicial service staff are testifying.
Yes.
Before the committee.
The committee, yes.
I see.
Imagine testifying against your boss. Can you look at manager of media general?
No, you can use another example. No, I mean, just I mean, let's use a different setting. But I get the point.
Let me use another example. So in this specific case, where judicial service staffs are witnesses, and imagine the CJ still being in office. Can you even have the courage, my brother, in even going there? That would even lead to suppression of evidence.
I see.
So in good conscience, the suspension, and like President Mahama acted previously, guess what? In the wisdom of the framers of the Constitution, unless of course we say we are wiser than them. Do you know something?
Mm-hmm.
If you look, the 1968 Constitution, 79 Constitution, didn't even have these provisions. For instance, the in-camera hearing, they were never in those provisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was for good reason why in the 1992 Constitution, having reflected on our past history, decided to have these two provisions, the in-camera hearing, the suspension provisions. We cannot for a minute, and I do not think that the Ghana Bar Association is suggesting even remotely that they are wiser than the people who put the Constitution together. I do not think so. And look, let me say this. There have been issues. The proceedings are happening at Edu Lodge. Why? Why is it not happening at the judicial, the court complex? Look, my brother Alfred, can you imagine a situation where the head of the judiciary will now be coming back now, for want of a better word, like somebody accused?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so these are all the reasons why the committee members came out and said, look, let's get a place so comfortable, a place so detached from the judiciary, where she can feel comfortable, appear quietly, no media razzmatazz. Have you seen that there have not been any media, things about the proceedings quietly until her press conference the last time? I want to say this, and I say this forcefully. President John Dramani Mahama, took the oath of office before her ladyship, Justice Gertrude Torkornoo, and swore an oath, which oath is swore that you do justice to all manner of persons, but more importantly, respect the laws of this country. What else can President Mahama do under the circumstance? Imagine, just for a minute, that President Mahama has taken a procedure that is not sanctioned by Constitution. Our brothers and sisters in the MPP would have used this as ground for his removal, as having breached the Constitution, particularly his oath of office. Now, a compliance with the Constitution should rather get the commendation from an association made up of lawyers. Where from this notion that this thing will create a bad precedent? What does it mean for a bad precedent? If tomorrow, look, tomorrow, an MPP administration comes, I don't know the outcome of the committee's work, and say, under President Mahama, a CJ was removed. Today, the Chief Justice of the Republic is Martin Kpebu.
Mm-hmm.
And for that matter, I am going to remove, because even when there are no petitions, it's for that president. And let's remember this. Mm-hmm. No president, and I repeat, no president is happy superintending upon an impeachment proceeding against a chief justice. No president. And President Mahama is not an exception. but it's an uncomfortable duty that you must perform as sanctioned by the Constitution. Not doing would amount to a desecration, a violation of the 1992 Constitution. I am expecting that an association made up of lawyers, with respect, would ground their proposition in law and say, Mr. President, to our mind, what you are doing violates the Constitution. Why? When President Mahama appointed Justice Poorman, when President Mahama appointed Justice Yawapa, the Ghana Bar Association, then led by President Nene Amegachi, Justice Amegachi, what happened? They went to Supreme Court to challenge that decision by President Mahama. So if the bar today feels strongly that a rule of law or a procedure, the Constitution, has not been complied with, why not use the court rather than draw President Mahama into a conversation not specifically grounded in law? That kind of invitation, with the greatest respect, ought to be declined. Okay. And that is why you see that the call, more or less, for a reversal of the suspension to be an invitation to the president to engage in a non-constitutional conduct.
I see. But
until then, I think that we should permit the rule of law to take its course. The leadership, the Chief Justice, is ably being represented by no other lawyer, by Senior Ayikwe Otu, a very respected lawyer who knows his ways around the law, among others. And so I strongly believe once the evidence against the Chief Justice will be subjected to strict proof, rigorous cross-examination, I think that if it's without merit, it will become clear to everybody, Alfred.
I see. But let me bring in Dr. Jato here on this matter, because flowing from what Edudzi Tamaklo has indicated, it is a constitutional, and this is something we've said consistently here, a constitutional provision that is at play, essentially, in the present following the dictates of the Constitution. The Ghana Bar Association hasn't departed from its position that, in their view, this is not the way to go. Essentially asking that she be reinstated and then the process will play out. This morning, we're just getting some new information from Lawyer Edudzi Tamaklo that there are judicial service staff who are essentially witnesses or testifying against the Chief Justice at this hearing of the committee of the petitions against her. How prudent would it be to have her reinstated when this process is going on with such detail as we have heard this morning?
Thank you very much. It's always going to be difficult to follow a lawyer when we are talking about law. So he's the expert, so it's like I'm the only non-lawyer, actually the two of us. Yes. So it's difficult to follow a lawyer when it comes to legal issues, because I'm going to say something, he's going to quote a constitution and say, hey, this is not the case. But I'm going to try. So Edudzi, I'm going to try to see what I can do to follow what you've said. The first thing is, how come you know so much about the process? It's just curious. You are not a lawyer to any of the people there. You are not in the room there. How did you come by this information? It's prime information. It's sensitive information. It's detailed information. Who gave it to you? I think we should find out that, because I can understand if you were in there. If you are one of the lawyers, then of course, is that covered by lawyer-client privilege? Then I won't probe. But if not, I would really want to know, and I think the public wants to know, how you know that people are testifying when you are not part of the process in any way. You are not a lawyer for any of them. So that is like something curious. It just hit me, and it is. Secondly, my position on this Chief Justice thing is known. It's a beaten I've said it here again and again and on so many platforms. I personally think she's gone. I personally think that she's not going to win this case. I personally think that is done, that she's not going back to that office as a Chief Justice. I've said that. 2, I've also said that I'm proud of her fight against the case that she's taking on. In fact, Ediji just said something that Kwaku Bakwenko challenged the case of Supreme Court. It was true now. Probably if it was entertained and then the judge, the Supreme Court comes out with its rulings, maybe they would have helped a lot in the current issue. So I'm happy that she's fighting it. I'm happy that the cases are going to Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is making rulings, and the last time you said I was right when I said that it will help regional jurisprudence of these cases. So again, I'm happy that she's fighting it. I'm happy that she's not sitting down and just taking it, that she's going all out. In fact, I'm even happy that she has also taken her case to the general public. Basically inviting us into this very sensitive case. You said, look, this is what is happening to me, and I'm the Chief Justice, or I was a Senior Justice. If this is happening to me, you can imagine what will happen to you. So again, I think her fight, I've said it, is virtuous. I think her fight is right, and I think that people will learn from her. Look, when we hear the history of Yaa Asantewaa, I don't think Yaa Asantewaa thought that she was going to defeat the Europeans when they came. No. It was the fact that she realized that no, even if they lose, somebody has to stand and fight for something. It's like they did believe that not standing up to fight a system that she believed was bloody, injustice, and would kill them is worse than fighting and dying with pride. So I think this woman is fighting so that even if she dies with honor, she dies with dignity, she dies with her pride. And I think that's what. So I salute her for that. I think it's a good fight. It's a right fight. She should go ahead. And whatever happens, she can be proud of the fight she put up. Sometimes, in times of moral crisis, the deepest places of hell, we are told, are left for those who claim to what? Neutral. Yeah. Because it's important that you rise up, you raise your hand, and you take a stand. And then you fight for it. You may lose, but history will remember that when the time came, you did not claim some anonymity, you did not claim some neutrality, but then you stood up and you fought. And I think that is what the Ghana Bar Association is doing. They are saying that, look, we might be wrong in law, as I'm saying, but history will record that. When this was happening, when the first time the Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana was being removed under this constitution, when this grave issue was happening, we stood up, we took a position, and we fought for it. And that, for me, there is pride and there's honor in that. Look, if institutions of government or if public and private institutions are always stand up, there was a time we are doing. Yeah. Is that right? Is that to say that, look, hey, we are going to take a position, and we are going to defend this position to the very end. We are consistent. And now I think that is what they are doing. So for me, I'm glad that they are taking that position. Again, I don't know the law enough to know whether it's right or not. But the fact that they rose up, they've raised their hand, and they raised their hand, they're doing it. It's virtuous. It's a good fight, and I think that they're going to do that. That's where the point about you not knowing whether it's right or wrong in law is where Lawyer Tamaklo was making the argument that you see you can take a position like this, you know, as a non-lawyer essentially, and you say that in your view she's a goner, you maintain that position consistently. But then again, when it is coming from the Bar Association. The position cannot be analyzed in oblivion or outside of what the association stands for. It's a group of lawyers. Thank you. So that's what I'm saying, that I will let the two lawyers, Martin and Eduji, do that. And I think they have it covered. They will cover the legal. But I'm looking at it in terms of advocacy. I'm looking at it even standing for an institution, the bar. Those things can be political, it can be policy, and it can be advocacy. And I think that's what they are doing. They are simply trying to say that when this history is being written, let history record that the Ghana Bar Association fought this. They are playing to history. They are making their case known that when one day this history will be written. And I've said it. Anybody who will write the history of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama must know this. And it's not going to be an anecdote in his history. No, it's going to be a chapter, if not a book, on its own. Ghana Bar Association wants to be known. In fact, they are also hoping that there will be a full chapter, if not a full book, dedicated to what they say and that they have been consistent in this fight. That is what I'm saying, and that's what it's good. We should take it away. And then I ask the question. There's the union representing she's supposed to be the head of that union, right? Where is the union? I mean, okay. The union of where is that union? I always believe that unions are biased. Natural unions are biased. In fact, unions do not exist for the institutions. That is, unions exist for the people in the institutions. The chief, did she pay her union dues? Or her union, did they pay dues?
So if there's singing
Yes,
silence, what does the silence tell you?
I don't know. I'm saying, did they pay dues?
Yes,
so she paid her dues. So she's a union member. She's a member in good standing. And now that she needs the union most, they are quiet. Like, for me.
What does their silence tell you?
I don't know. There could be two things. One, are they silent because they think she's guilty?
What's the name? Afri.
No, yes.
You see, my brother.
That's a quick
Jatu
intervention. Yes.
Yes, a quick one. My brother Jatu is a political scientist. At least you should do a bit of our political history. If you recall, with respect, when Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was removed, okay, one of the judges who sat on the commissions to investigate Mr. Kofi Bakun and all of those, Igala and Co. was Justice Apalu. The history will show this. When the CPP, after CPP was proscribed and it came under demand, there was an attempt to remove Apalu using parliamentary proceedings. So that if Apalu had gone to Parliament and gone through the parliamentary proceedings as the Chief Justice of the new Supreme Court, right, what would then have happened was that they would take a vote on him and would have been removed. When the young lecturer there at KNUST, Dr. Amwakutufor, took the matter to the Supreme Court, then Court of Appeal, the court intervened and stopped the process, scuttled it. Again, when the GBA attempted to remove Abba through the writ action, the court again intervened and stopped it. When my respected senior, Brata Kwete, decided to remove Chief Justice Akwa, the court again intervened in Franka J. Chum and scuttled it. Why this? Possibly we need to find out what exactly is happening.
Okay.
As a political scientist, maybe you should have vet your mind to that.
Thank you.
Okay, well,
again,
I think it's
those
some
are
good
more legal cases.
intervention
I agree.
as well.
I mean, your knowledge about those things, I will not question them. But I'm still making the point. I'm making self stands that the union we've not heard from them. Maybe they could come out and say that this case is so bad that we will not touch it, or they could come out to say that we don't agree that we agree that there's merit, so we'll not touch it. But I'm saying that shouldn't history record their position? Shouldn't the history, when we are documented, shouldn't they, like you just rightly said, Eduji, that one day we will reference this case, talk again. Shouldn't we at least have the buy-in of that union, saying that this was where we stood, this is what we decided, this is what we thought when it turns out? Because I think that is important. That gives us a kind of a more complete 360 perspective of this. That this is what the woman is saying. This is the law we've been told. This is what the Constitution has said. And this is what the bar has said. She's a member of the bar. At least the member of the bar has said something. As an individual, she's stating her position. And she's doing that both within the committee and in the press. 1. 2, she's a member of the bar. The bar has stated its position. 3, 4, she's also a member of the union. What is the union's position? I'm not saying the union should support her. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying the union should not support it. That's not what I'm saying again. But I'm saying that for the sake of history and for the sake of tomorrow, the position of the bar, if it's known, will help. So because tomorrow, one day, I think that the bar will come out to support somebody if the person is being fought. Or the bar will come out not to support somebody. And when that happens, we'll rephrase this. Like Eduji said, he made an argument that is very important. It seems that under some regimes, the GBA goes quiet. And under some regimes, the GBA becomes loud. Good. Then we can make that argument to the GBA. Why are you quiet when, they say, the NDC is in power? And why are you all of a sudden loud when the NPP is in power? Those are very legitimate concerns. We can ask the question, why do you do that? But it's the same way that we are saying, because I think that, I don't know, maybe, is it possible that in the past, the union has made pronouncement? Have they ever made pronouncement on none of these issues? Okay. If they have, why haven't they?
All right.
In this case.
Not that
Or is it that based on their bylaws and everything, they are supposed to be quiet? If it is their bylaws or their rules of establishment that says that just be quiet when this is happening, then I respect that. But if there's no provision like that, at least we should know their position.
Well, but at least with the position of the Bar Association as has been espoused over the period, at least with what we heard on Monday as well, it points out something, is it not? Because if you look at what the Bar Association has said since this entire thing began, they refer to eschewing vengeance. I mean, some have referenced Loretta Lamte serving a 10-month suspension, and I believe her removal process also lasted about 7 months, correct? Chaired by Justice Enini Aboa, the former CJ. And then now what we are seeing playing out now. Because you are a member of the association, it still comes back to the advocacy that Dr. Zato talks about, whether it has any foundation whatsoever in law or it is meant to achieve something else. Because in that advocacy, you will still refer to the constitutional dictates that supports the advocacy coming from a bar association full of lawyers. Their call is that the suspension should be reviewed, looking at its implication on the judiciary. They say it's a poor precedent that is being set. That's the position of the Bar Association on this, that she could be reinstated and then the process will still go on. Is that feasible?
In theory, definitely Article 14611, the president can, right? But that's, so if when you say is that feasible, so the reason I'm answering is that it means that in law, I have to answer the legal part first before I will then give further explanation, because some viewers may want to know, is it allowed under the law? I'm saying yes, under the law it is. That's as a theoretical matter. So let's read here. It says Article 146, Clause 11. Says the president may at any time revoke a suspension under this article. Let me read again. The president may at any time revoke a suspension under this article. Yes, it's feasible under the law. But the law too doesn't work in a vacuum. You have to combine the law with the facts, right? The facts on the ground. So far, you see, the troubling thing is that my bar association has not demonstrated why. If you just say a dangerous precedent. So right now, as I said, I'm trying to Google to find out that the time the other 12 justices were removed, when the Anas expose came, did the bar association come to make such a statement that it's a dangerous precedent to remove the 12 justices of the High Court, etc. It's a difficult matter, the way the bar association is handling this, and I'm trying to be very objective. I don't just want to, just criticize them for the sake of criticism. But, so taking it objectively, we all know that the petitions leaked, right? But the Supreme Court says the fact that the petitions have leaked doesn't mean that we can then go ahead and discuss. We cannot discuss the details of the petitions. But all I can say is that, please, when you read those matters, please, let's not trivialize the petitions. Let due process continue. Because for the Bar Association to say dangerous precedent, there is a vengeance, we like this, and there is that political vendetta, we like vengeance, etc. in this context, it's difficult. It's difficult to rationalize, right? These are very serious matters. We should let due process go on. If they had said, the president should leave the petition, the suspension, and then let Chief Justice Tokono resign, right? Accept a resignation, notwithstanding the other Supreme Court decisions. That one, yes, I've said it time with that number, that if it's about making sure she gets a dignified exit, resignation, so that she can keep her benefits, that one I'll vote for it any day, okay? Because I think we've dragged this matter enough.
Exactly.
And if we don't stop at a point, you see that the general system will suffer more. You remember even in the Bible, when Pontius Pilate they asked, no, even before they got to Pontius Pilate, the high priest said, there's more wisdom in giving up Jesus Christ so that there will be peace in society, right? Because they didn't want any trouble with the Romans. So what I mean is that there's more wisdom now in giving her a dignified exit than to continue to fight this out. Because as we fight out, yes, the press conference Chief Justice Tokonu gave would help with the future law reforms, etc. But overall, the fight, the high political temperature, etc., I don't think are worth it. Let's give her a dignified exit. Then she goes. Yes.
But does this position that the GBA takes consistently help in itself? In
no, the GBA, right now, what the GBA is doing, GBA is losing credibility, fast declining in credibility.
How? Why do you say
They say GBA, that first issue, their first statement, do you readily have it? We can read from it. The first statement they gave on this matter, they said, oh, yes, it's okay, let due process go on, and they stayed. And that was okay. It's good that they said, oh, yes, let the thing be done under due process, right? Then they shifted, went and they didn't announce the media review conference well, and went and met a few lawyers, less than 60, voted to say the removal process is not good, all the unsavory things they did, that resolution. We came here and condemned it. But it tells you that they haven't learned. It looks like they are digging in their heels. The GBA is digging in their heels. It's not good. As an association, I expected, that's when we showed that Mrs. Ifuagati, you see people even brought pictures of her in MPP attire on an MPP platform with Joe Gatti, her husband. I thought that would have told her that, look, Ghanaians are watching. So even if it were anything, I even think that Mrs. Ifuagati should not be the person to give such a speech, because you see, it's very difficult for citizens to separate her from the MPP. So she should have even known the messenger. She's not the right messenger for this kind of message. Madam Ifuagati, this speech, you shouldn't have read it. Let somebody who is not tied to the MPP openly. Yes, you may be MPP inside, right? So somebody who may be MPP inside, but once there isn't public, there are not enough facts to link the person, the message would have sunk in more. But once you are MPP, your husband is MPP, the moment you give such speeches, all people, discerning citizens, see is that you are trying to paint the government black for political ends. Madam Ifuagati, let it be clear, I think this is the last time you should give a speech on this matter. Please separate yourself. What? Yeah, it's not good. The optics are very bad. People have your pictures in MPP attire on MPP platforms, campaigning with your husband. You can never be an honest broker in this matter. Madam Ifuagati, you can't be an honest broker in this matter. Give people who have not shown political affiliation, even though they may have it. It's possible even the person you allow to do this can be more entrenched in MPP, etc. But once the optics are not against that person, discerning citizens are likely to listen to that person more than yours. Because for you with the MPP attire and then on an MPP platform, never. Because all people are reading into is that you are using this thing for party politics. Yes, that's it. Because when you say dangerous, the words, I'm like, but what kind of words? I don't see what they are anchored on.
The poor presidents making reference to the fact that other international bodies have even waded in the call for her to be, the suspension to be, reviewed.
As a lawyer, when you say poor president, it means that there is, just say others have asked for the rate to be reviewed. It's not sufficient. The thing is that what in the proceedings makes it a poor president? What in the proceedings? When she, Madam Ifuagati, is not allowed to discuss the proceedings. So you see, we are in a tight corner, like you say, a pickle, right? Yes, or catch-22. Everywhere you pass, you are blocked. They say, hey, don't discuss this matter then. On which matter? On which particular facts? unless maybe if you were dealing with the part have finished, you see, then and what you are allowed to discuss, maybe let's say if you're saying prima facie, you didn't see the ruling, maybe you see the thing, because that one they finished prima facie, because Ekufuado did the prima facie ruling when Professor Azar did the petition for the removal of Chief Justice, and that prima facie ruling came up. So we thought that okay, then that's a good step. So this one too, we're expectant that we'll see the prima facie. Maybe if you had said because there was no prima, you've not seen it, and so that's it, good. But when you just come out, dangerous president speaking in the air, then it's difficult. It's difficult.
But Martin, why haven't we seen that prima facie case?
Yeah, so we've been saying it. So you see that here we've said
Maybe DG would tell us why we haven't seen it.
And that one, we've said that Ekufuado, Nebuchadnezzar even brought out.
Why haven't we seen it?
Let's not.
You are the inside man today.
I don't think it will be fair. I don't think it will be fair to call him that. No. I don't think it will be fair. No. I'm talking about lawyer Martin. Let's not go there. Yes, I don't think it will be fair. Let's not go there.
Oh, Dr. Adam Bona. Oh, he's there. Oh, let me greet Adam Bona.
Yes,
by your supplement.
So that please let's not go there. Let's stop that.
Yes. Once in a while we have to make light movements.
No.
Okay. Thank you. No further. So you see what Madam Ifwagati is done. When I was like, I looked for it, I listened a number of times. I was like, you see, we are lawyers. Before you come to the conclusion, you base it on some facts. On the specific proceedings. Maybe, you see, Chief Justice Tokono has a judicial review application. She's in the High Court. Maybe if the High Court, assuming hypothetically, had ruled certain way in her favor, and the suspension is not been lifted, then you say that, but the High Court says this, you've not lifted it. Good. Okay. So all I'm saying is I have not seen facts that warrant the statement that this is a dangerous precedent. Madam Gatti, please, listen, it's not good. It's not good. You know, there will be life after this removal process. There will be life.
There's a question for you, okay? So, because I need to take this quick break. But John Mensah from La is what he says. This position, was it a GBA position, or he says sounded more like an MPP position? In what reviews or processes do official GBA speeches go through before they are okayed to be read, published? Can Lawyer Kpebu, as a member, tell us?
Okay, so by constitution, there is the bar council. So maybe also when Madam Gatti read it, maybe henceforth the GBA presidents, or when a speech is to be read, we should be told that this has gone through the bar council. In any event, the bar council itself has to be reviewed. You know, people have complained that certain persons have been on it for too long. There are some persons who are known to be affiliated with the MPP, and so we no longer wish that they are on that bar council because we want the GBA to be more neutral. So you see that once you have certain persons on the bar council who are openly MPP, people don't feel that's why you see people, citizens have more lawyers no longer see the association as representing them.
Right.
Yeah, because the MPP elements are too strong, even at that level. Right.
Right.
So those are there. So the man asks, even if you talk about the bar council, there are still you will still find MPP people in there. Right.
Okay.
So we want to have a more structured bar council that doesn't have political affiliates.
Right.
Yes. If you want to be a political affiliate, yes, be in your mainstream politics. Let the bar council be more neutral than being anchored on political party lines.
Thank you. Now I'm going to go for this quick break. When we are back, we're going to Ablekuma North because in the coming days, there's a lot more to expect with what the MPP intends to do. So we'll lay the foundation today. Right after this quick break, Musa Dankwa is the Director of Global Info Analytics, going to be joining us. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Key Point on TV3. We are live on the Voice of London Radio in the heart of the city of London. Also on 3FM 92.7. My outfit this morning, as you see every Saturday on Key Point, I'm clothed by Kogra Clothing. It's the best version of you. And you can locate them on the Spintex Road, 18 Junction, opposite the Allied Oil Filling Station. On the ground floor, same building with the Ghana Made store. Contact them on 0244 238 341. That's 0244 238 341 for this outfit and many others you've seen me wear. Or you can look out for them on social media. Kogra Clothing, spelled Colgra, on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter as well. Now, a number of your messages on the issues as discussed so far, and I'll read just the last part of it. Dr. Akwe says, good morning. For if Agate to speak in Red Church asking for the president or the procedure to avoid vengeance is one that raises serious concerns. What is going on rather vindicates the in-camera clause. The GBA threatened a protest. Or do note that the GBA president indicated that the GBA met the suspended CJ on the day she wrote to the president asking for copies of petitions. This letter was copied and leaked through a radio station. We want to make a quick point, and then I'll move on to the Ablekuma North matter. Very quickly, Council.
Yeah.
Quick one.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
And,
no, that's
sorry.
fine.
Okay, this one.
Maybe, okay, let's shift on so that when I gather it, there's
Perfect.
a fact I'm
says,
fact checking.
Why the former Chief Justice bring the angle of her late uncle? This one from Papa Bishu, you say. Thank you very much for your message. This one here from Musa and Nima says the GBA president is only doing politics, nothing more, nothing less. Was it wrong when the same Article 146 was used to remove Loretta Lamte and Charlotte Osei? Until these questions are answered, please let us, it says, be honest with the facts. Okay, this one here says that two major things are holding our economy back. The government wanting to share profit of the private sector without any investment. 25% corporate tax, it says, is slavery. Thank you very much. This one here says, good morning. It says it was great having Professor Godfrey Bobkin on the program this morning. Can I have his contact? No, unfortunately you cannot, until he gives that permission for me to do so. Thank you. Dr. Peter, is it into me? Thank you very much for your message this morning. This Ablekuma North situation has evolved over the period. In fact, that's the only constituency without representation in Parliament. The constituents are only yearning for a representation. That's the only focus. The Electoral Commission had consistently indicated that they needed police protection to finish the coalition. In fact, 2 weeks ago when Dr. Bosman Asare was in Parliament, he was asked a specific question as to whether a rerun was on the table as one of the options. He ruled that out. 2 weeks on, the rerun of the 19 polling stations has been announced by the Electoral Commission. But let me just give you an idea of how chaotic this process has been. Take a look.
This is Kalamu officers and Kalamu. We are here. All your officers have today. Kalamu is in officers. Kalamu. We are here. We are here. Kalamu. Come and see this signature and this signature. Come and see this signature and this signature. Please. We want authenticated signatures. Media, come and look at the signature. Media. Media, look at the signature. Media,
So on the 9th of December 2024, Irabuna Oben was declared MP-elect, but the Electoral Commission ruled that out, that declaration was done under duress. And this is why. Take a look.
19 polling stations, and NPP had 27,170. NPP had 28,151. On that note, I declare Eura Abna as the MP selected.
We just saw the Electoral Commission nullified this declaration because per their own assessment they said it was done under their returning officer there did this declaration under duress. On the 4th of January, the High Court ordered the Electoral Commission to complete the collation process because of the violence that I showed you. But Musa Dankwa is the Director of Global Info Analytics, is joining us on Zoom for a brief conversation. Dankwa, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. Now, Dr. Zato, and this just in the next 3 minutes, why do you contest? Well, do you align with the MPP's position that the Electoral Commission does not have the power to declare a rerun of 19 polling stations, because the EC's objective in doing this is to just end this matter so that the people would have representation in Parliament?
Thank you very much. As to the ability or the legality of them running it, I'll leave it to the lawyers and with the court. They may determine whether that is so. I don't know that. But this is what I do know. The EC has been all the parties in this process have been very consistent in their positions. The NDC has always asked for a rerun because they believe that in a rerun, right? Good. The EC has been very consistent in what they've said. They said, look, we've got the numbers, we've got everything to declare. That there are only 3 outstanding polling stations that we need to do that. And that all that we need, all that we simply need is for the police to provide us the needed security and safety to declare this. That has been the EC's position since they started. And you rightly mentioned, the EC went to court, to Parliament, and under oath, they still said, we don't need a rerun. We have all the results, we have everything to declare. And they said, even if we need a rerun, just in 3 polling stations where we think that the things have been compromised. So everybody's position has been known. The question we want to ask is, what changed? What made the EC change its position? I didn't do science in school, but they're talking about Newton's laws of motion. There's laws like a body in motion, in a stagnant will continue to stand until a force acting outside it helps it to move. There's something to that extent. My point, what was the force? What made the EC do this U-turn? Something has been. There has been something so huge. This is how let's say that.
They explain it in their statement.
Yeah, that what? Because my point is that they explain the statement, but the MPP said that they were not doing about it. The point I'm trying to make is that something forced the EC to change their position from the principal position they've always had, from the correct position they've always had. That look, we have the numbers, we can declare them. We only need security. One, the security has not come, the safety has not come, and then you declare this. And so I want to ask myself, what changed? What made the EC do this? And I look now and I see what happened was what the chairman of the NDC said. The chairman of the NDC said a clear, explicit complaint. We will remove you and your 2 deputy ministers.
You think that's what led to this?
He said, yes. I want to believe that there's that force, is that pressure that led the EC to acquiesce. It is that pressure that led the EC to give in. It is that pressure that allowed the EC to bend over. It is that led them to flip flop, because if not, something happened. That is the only thing happened. And I think the EC is hoping that when they do this, they will protect their jobs.
Okay.
They were hoping that when they do this, the NDC will not remove them. But listen, it is too late. It is too late. Please, this will not stop it. There is a agenda, and the general and the chairman of the NDC has made it clear. You are being removed and you will be removed. So I think that doing this as a sacrificial lamb, you cannot use Ablekumanov as a sacrificial lamb to the NDC to allow you to stay in power. Okay. It's not going to happen.
But is it within the power of the NDC chairman to remove an electoral commission chair?
He said he's going to remove them. I don't know what powers he had, but he said it.
Because you're continuously making reference.
Yes, I'm making reference because I'm saying that was the only thing that has changed.
Did he say he's going to remove the EC chair?
He said they're going to remove them. Yes, he said the EC chair and his deputies will be removed. He said that, and he made that point clear.
You want to make specific reference to a quote So I'll give you the time to.
No, I'm not trying to make a specific reference to Kobo Garden House because what I know is that.
So I'm just going to, because you're looking onto your.
No, I'm not looking at that. It's something else. No, I'm not trying to.
I just want to read what the specific detail of what the Electoral Commission said led to the decision for a rerun.
Okay.
Because you are questioning the Commission's decision now. 2 weeks ago, they said they were not going to do a rerun.
Yes.
Now they've come out to say they will. And they give a reason for that. And I don't know if you've seen the statement. The statement says, as part of its commitment to resolve the impasse regarding the Ablekumanov constituency parliamentary election, the Electoral Commission yesterday, Tuesday, July 1, met with representatives of the MPP and NDC. The meeting, Dr. Zazoy,
I'm listening.
The meeting, which was a follow-up to an earlier meeting held on Thursday, 12 June 2025, provided both parties the opportunity to brief the Commission on any new development regarding the said constituency. The parties informed the Commission that their positions put forward at the last meeting remain unchanged. The NDC held a view that the Electoral Commission should have a rerun in 37 polling stations, because scanned pink sheets from 37 polling stations, which were used to collate the results, were provided by the MPP. The MPP was of the view that the results from 3 outstanding polling stations be collated and a winner declared, since the NDC agents had verified and confirmed the scanned polling station results. It is important for the public to understand that the issue in contention has to do with the fact that 37 pink sheets provided by the NPP and used to collate the results were scanned copies. The public may recall that political party supporters besieged her. It goes on and on and after extensive deliberation, the Commission informed the political parties that it will proceed to rerun the election in 19 out of the 37 polling stations. And they go on to say it is instructive to know that the Commission was able to secure the presiding officer's verification and confirmation for 18 scanned polling station results. And the rest that they couldn't secure the verification and confirmation of the presiding officers, they cannot go ahead to declare it.
Okay, so before...
What exactly have they done
wrong? My point is that when did they do this extensive deliberation? Was it before the deputy went to parliament and swore on the oath that they had everything?
The date is there. It says they had a meeting on the 12th June and that was 1st July.
So did the deputy lie, did the EC lie to parliament? Because the EC went to parliament and said that we have everything, there's no need for a rerun. That even if there will be a rerun, it's only 3 policies. So did they lie? Did the EC lie to parliament when they said that? If they did not lie, my question is that what? Because see, when you go to parliament, you raise your hand, you take an answer. You are not Jewish. You don't do that on a whim. It means that you would have done your homework, you would have done your consultation, you would have consulted your data to arrive at that conclusion. So when you now go there and come and now you are saying that after that, then it means that something pushed you. This is what I just want to quote the last thing of what the national chairman of the NDC said. Look, there has to be a change. I think the top 3 leaders must all go. The chairperson, G. Mensah, and her deputies, Bosman Asare and Samoteti, they must all go. They have been managed this action you've done just goes to confirm to him that you've been managed the EC. So if your purpose was to save your jobs, too bad. If your purpose was to stay there, too bad. You will still go because what you've done has just damaged your reputation beyond repair.
Mr. Dankwa, what's the trend analysis for this Ablekumanov constituency? What was your prediction in there? Because this constituency has been won by the MPP since it was created, is it not?
Yes, it has been won by MPP since it was created. And it was deemed to be a safe constituency for the MPP until we spotted the danger in the period prior to the last election. Indeed, the last poll that was conducted in Ablekumanov before the elections, around October 15th or so, NDC was leading by a whisker, by just 0.0 something percentage points in the Ablekumanov constituency. So for me, it wasn't surprising that the results of the election was on a knife edge.
I see. But then again, you categorize it in the Dom Kwabena kind of situation, that there was going to be a possible flip.
Yes, it was supposed to be flipped, even though we knew it was very close. And any race that was very close, NDC won them. So this wouldn't have been a different from the rest of the areas we saw NDC was winning.
I see. And ladies and gentlemen, Just a quick one on this one, if you're there. Hello, Council?
I'm here.
Yes.
I'm waiting patiently for my time.
Yes. And
okay, so you see,
the next 3 minutes.
This is a decision that was taken in my presence. I, as the Director Legal, with the Deputy National Election Director, Jibril Mahdi, went for the program. We first attended one on 12 June. And in that meeting, we're led by our Deputy General Secretary, Lawyer Barbara Asamoah Tanko, Computer, myself, and Jibril. At that meeting, I proposed, in fact, Deputy General Secretary asked me to speak. So I proposed that we should have a by-election. And the reason I gave was simple, that we need a solution that factors the electorates. Because whereas my brother Evans Nimakun, Honorable Ebenezer Nate, were insisting that we should limit it to only 3, I said that the commissioners are put in the position of Solomon to deal with these 2 women, the baby thief and the one whose own child. But we need an outcome that will salvage or keep the child. So the commissioners, after I gave my proposal, my brother Evans gave a counter proposal that we should limit it to only 3. I said, look, the 3 will not factor, simply because we started with 62 polling stations for a rerun. When we went for the 12 June meeting, Madam, after I spoke, Madam Jane Mensah then asked me that, it's a lawyer, you are not being fair. You are not being fair because you brought 54 carbonized sheets. The MPP accepted your 54 carbonized sheets. They have brought 25 carbonized sheets. You don't want. You said we should limit it to 62. So in that meeting, Madam Jane Mensah said no. And I said, okay, we'll concede on the 62. So we dropped the numbers that then the MPP's 25 should also be accepted. It brought the numbers to 37. So it was the 37 on June 12 that I made a proposal, being led by my senior Barbara, that we should do the rerun. The MPP said no. So Madam Jane Mensah said, okay, then they'll go and come back. It was within that time that Dr. Bosman-Asari appeared before Parliament. So I was taken aback. Mm-hmm. So we received a message that we should appear before the commissioners on the 1st of July. So when we appeared on the 1st of July,
right,
Madam Jane Mensah said, he said, look, Eduji, you said 37. However,
thank you.
About 18 polling stations, our officers were able to confer. Then Madam Jane Mensah then further said, look, we saw what happened in Dome Pabenya. That gave you NDC 1 parliamentary seats.
Right.
So in fairness, it is only in 19 polling stations that we are unable to get our officers to confer.
Right.
So for fairness, let's go and have the the rerun in the 19. So at all material time, Professor Dr. Zato may not be aware.
Right.
Madam Jane Mensah was the one who insisted. We were looking for 62 polling stations.
I see. Thank you.
She watered it down to 19.
Thank you.
So please be fair to